Hello, hello. Hi Lola, how are you?
I am doing great. How are you doing?
I am very, very, very excited. I'm very, very, very excited. But anyway, let me introduce the episode. Hello, if you're listening or watching, you're listening to Chat with Nat with me, Natasha. My friends call me Nat, and I'm hoping you can too. I have here a really special guest, and I am so excited. I've got here an award-winning photographer, travel writer, author, um, Lolá Ákínmádé. I hope I've said it right. I've been practicing.
No, you did good. You did good. It's Lola Ákínmádé Orchestra.
Yeah. Oh, orchestrum. See? I love that. I love that. And most recently, I'm excited for all the things I mentioned, right? But I'm especially excited because Lola is the author of Bitter Honey. So if you're watching, you can see us putting it up on screen. Bitter Honey, which is my latest read, and I am so excited. I'm so excited to be speaking to Lola. So we're going to be talking about Bitter Honey. But before we get started. Um, I was doing some research for Lola, to kind of get a flavor of who you are. And I was like, you're like they call them what, multi-hyphenated people,
Yes,
like who do a lot. And one
yes,
of the things I came across was that you played rugby.
yes.
Please tell us about that.
Oh, absolutely. No, I'm what you call like a multi-potential potentialite, so somebody that does many things. And so rugby, I actually played rugby when I was in college. And then when I left college, I started a rugby team in Dayton, Ohio, a women's rugby team
Yeah.
alongside the men. And that team went on to win its division. That team was a Division Two team. And then when I moved back to like the East Coast of the US, I then played for a Division One team and a Division One team. Those are kind of the IS teams. That's where they pick the national players from. So I did play very competitive rugby for many, many years. And just last year, I was inducted into my rugby club's Hall of Fame. So yeah, rugby is my community. I love that sport. And yeah,
That is so amazing because I was like, I've never come across women's rugby. I mean, I
yeah,
should have, but I was like, wow. And in
yes,
America as well, like the
yes,
place that you
yes,
least expect rugby to be a thing. So I was
yes.
like, this is amazing. This is amazing. And just before we get started talking about the actual book, just for people who may not be, familiar with you, I know I've described you. But I mean, do you want to say a little bit about, I guess, two questions? One, what you enjoy and
Mm,
how you describe yourself. And secondly, just a little bit about Bitter Honey, right? And what the
yes.
book is about for those who may not be familiar.
No, absolutely. I do enjoy my peace of mind. That's number one.
Love
But
that.
actually, I describe myself as a storyteller, right? I love telling stories. I love relationships, getting beneath kind of the nuances of relationships and culture. And because of that interest, that translates into lots of different things, right? So, because I love culture, I came from Nigeria with over 250 different tribes, speaking like 500 plus languages and dialects. I became a travel writer. I love culture. I like getting beneath our differences as well as our similarities. But then, because I love storytelling and I'm also an artist, I used to be an oil painter. Then I started getting into visual storytelling. How can I use other mediums, right, to tell stories? So that's what I describe myself as. The platform or the medium is irrelevant. It's this is the story I'm trying to tell. What's the best way to tell it? Fiction. Okay, let me tell this story through fiction. And
Yeah.
that's how I've written several books, including two novels, actually three novels now, including Bitter Honey and yeah, Bitter Honey, I would say is my most layered, complex, and deepest work of fiction so far.
I listen, I love bitter honey. So let's get right to it, right? And just to make sure that we're not spoiling it, right? For people that may be reading it and will read it. I'll try and do it in themes, right? And talk about the themes from the book. I love bitter honey so much because
Thank you.
I really love stories that tell the African story and particularly the African diaspora story, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Because that's my reality. That's the reality of a lot of people that I know. I love this because that first page, I was like, wait, what's going on? And I was like, oh my God, this is Sweden. I was like, oh
Yes.
my, so I was so excited because I was like, this is the first time I've come across literature in Sweden
Mm,
that, centers, African women, right?
yes.
So I was so excited about that. So the first theme that I really want to talk about is place.
Yes.
Right. Because in the book, we've got a number of places. We've got Sweden, we've got the Gambia, we have the United States, and then references to, Congo, Northern
Mm,
Rhodesia, like, in the book. So I love that. So how important was it for you to, set the story in Sweden and kind of give that color in comparison to other diaspora stories that are like in the UK, in the United
yes.
States. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And you know what? This is actually my third novel that does center the Black experience in Sweden. I started with In Every Mirror She's Black, and then Everything Is Not Enough, and now Bitter Honey. And it's because I'm a Black woman here, right? I have to write about my own experience here, the experience of people I know or people I don't know, but at least what does it feel like to be a true minority in a place that's still very predominantly white? How does it feel to navigate that invincibility, but also hypervisibility, you know, in a space where you stick out? And there just aren't that many stories that do, at least contemporary fiction, that center the Black experience in the Nordics. We are here, we've been here for generations, and
Yeah.
also uh, there's also just not even me as a Black woman, but even being mixed heritage, my kids
Mm,
and others. So there are lovely authors here writing. I will mention a few because they're also my friends, Jennifer Dalberg,
mhm.
Anglad Dalberg. She's writing about again just the kind of Black experience as well. Kimberly Golden, she writes more romance, but again, there's Charis Reed. This newest book is like a thriller heist kind of book that also uh, set in Stockholm. So there are a few of us, right, writing, but
Yeah.
we still need more. We
Yeah.
still need more because we still don't have a lot of literature
Mm,
that shows a nuanced, diverse cross-section of the Black experience. We always get the refugee story. We always get that,
mm,
or we always get, and I've written about that in the first book because it's important. It's also a valid story. But what about the woman in trying to get into the C-suite or the
mm.
the housewife or the
Yeah.
woman that's middle class? And so I'm
Mm.
trying to show just the richness of the Black experience in the Nordics.
Yeah, I love it. And just sticking with place, right? Because I found that the phraseology that you are using, I felt transported away from my environment, right?
Mm.
And I was just wondering, like, if, in speaking to other people, particularly who are not in Sweden, right? If I guess how can I put it? So let me just read something to you
Yes,
where
yeah.
I was like, wait, what's going on?
Mm.
So you described here like when you talk about Sebastian, right? When
Yes,
Sebastian, when he was younger, they moved from, the suburbs and then moved to, maybe a not so great area, right? And then you say that Sebastian stood out like a chunk of potato in a bowl of kidney beans.
yes.
I was like, wait, I've never heard of that. And I was wondering, I was like, is this like a Swedish delicacy? So that's kind of what I'm talking about
Got you.
in terms of like
Yes.
maybe
Oh,
that
got you.
Nordic sort of like
Got you.
influence
Yeah. No,
subconsciously.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So that particular dish is just me kind of mixing. two things that are very cultural. So with the South, beans is very important for us. With the North, potatoes, right? So so that's kind of uh it's with the East, it's rice, with the West, it's
Right.
corn, so you can easily start seeing kind of food influences. In my
Yeah.
other two books, I really brought a lot of food in. I brought in Turkish food, Somali food, Swedish food, and then in Bitter Honey, I brought in a lot of the Swedish sweets and what we
Yeah.
call a fika bread, like the cinnamon buns.
Yes.
There,
Yes.
there is there is something that Laj was eating, which
Yeah.
we call the dam sugara, so the vacuum
Right.
cleaner. And I'll show you a picture of it, but it's
Yeah.
like a green marzipan, really sweet dessert. So I
Ah,
bring in taste, I bring in sense of place because I am a travel writer.
yeah.
And for me, I don't tell you go to Croatia. Croatia is beautiful. I have to describe in a sensory way, in a visual way, show you through my words why you need to go to Croatia, whether it's
Yeah.
through the food and the smells and the touch and the sight and the sounds. So I think my career as a travel writer is what really helps my fiction when it comes to transporting you and giving you a sense of place.
Yeah, yeah, no, I love it because now I'm like, actually, I need to go to Sweden. Like, why haven't
Yes, you
I been
too.
to Sweden? I'm like, I need to go because I just love the description. And when you talk about Eurovision and obviously being in the UK, I guess the UK has a very different relationship with
Yes.
Eurovision
Yes.
than the rest of it. But I absolutely loved it. And with the Gambia, right? Because I was like, wait, I literally don't know this history and
Mm,
the relationship that Gambia had with Sweden. I guess
mm.
just a question, why Gambia?
Mm. Well, for one, and I'm Nigerian, so you can imagine I
Yeah.
had to do a lot of research. And I also have, Gambian friends here as well. So the most West Africans you find in Sweden are usually Gambians or Senegalese more so. And I think it's because of just a past relationship in terms of being visa free and then being able to travel. And Swedes in the past used to travel and go there for vacation and the beaches. And so it just kind of built this organic relationship with the Gambia over time. And plus, Nancy and Tina are two side characters
Mm,
from my previous novels. So they didn't have like really big roles in those novels, so just side characters. And Nancy was Gambian, and she is Gambian. So I knew that, she has to be Gambian. That's what I
yeah,
was stuck with, you know, uh, thematically. And
yeah,
then I had to do my research because I've been all around the world. I still haven't been to the Gambia yet. And so I knew if I haven't been there physically, I have to limit how much I put the characters there physically for me to be able to do it justice. And so most of it happened off the page in Gambia, or most of it happened in Sweden or in LA and stuff like that. And then just in terms of the languages, I wanted to explore more of a minority kind of language. So Wolof is quite, I think is the more popular one, and then Mandinka is more uh, not as popular as Wolof. And so I
yeah,
wanted to explore that aspect of the culture as well, which
yeah,
meant again working with beta readers, and making sure that the language and the phrases got double checked with linguists in Gambia, so I really did my work on this. And I think again, just referencing to just a long career as a travel writer has really helped in terms of writing with sensitivity, intention, and reverence about somebody else's culture. That I think just came naturally with my work, and so I was able to bring that into the fiction.
yeah, yeah. No, no, that definitely came across. And it's so interesting that you say you limited, you know, I guess the characters being in the Gambia because it's only just become apparent to me that yeah, of course, like a lot of it was like calling back home.
Yes.
But you did it in such a beautiful way because it wasn't apparent to me, right? Because and I think that talks to the diaspora experience, right? That you may not physically be in a place, but where you're from, the Gambia, is just always in the background,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Like the events at home,
Mm,
it's just always so
yes.
amazing. Thank
Thank
you for
you.
that.
Thank you.
Um, and then just moving on to time, right? So a lot of this is focused on, so like Nancy in late 70s, 80s, and then we have Tina, 2000s, 2005, 6 and on. I so I was just interested why that time? Why was that
Mm.
time important to you when writing this book?
So when I wrote In Every Mirror She's Black, which was my first novel, there is a character there called Tobias. And Tobias is on a date with my lead character, Kemi. And he tells her that my mom came as a student from Gambia to Sweden when she met when she met a professor who is my dad. And right there, I knew I wanted to write that story. And because I knew Tobias was meeting Kemi in 2015, that was where I had to walk the timeline from, saying, okay, when will his mom have moved to Sweden as for college? Okay, it's probably in the late 70s. When will the sister have been born? When will she? Because when we meet Tina in the future, she's an activist, right? In that book, she is vaguely mentioned as an activist. She shows up, she does a cameo, you know, and I had to walk that timeline back with
Yeah,
her age in that book. And so that's how I did it to say, okay, these are the time frames I'm working with.
yeah,
Now that I have the time frames, what were all the major events that happened around this time frame? Okay, Eurovision year, okay, World Cup year, okay, Olof Palme and Sweden. And then I started shifting things. Well, if I want this to happen, then maybe I should shift it 1 year, 2 years. So that's kind of how I laid it all out first, almost like a timeline chat before I started writing,
yeah,
because I knew if I start writing this, then it has to evolve so that this happens around this time.
yeah.
If I have to do this, then it has to evolve. And that's kind of how I laid it out.
I love it. There's a science. There's a
Yes.
science behind it. Because I was kind of thinking, I was like, oh, what's going on? And again, I was now making assumptions, right? Because I was thinking, I was like, because 70s, 80s, right? So we've got Nancy, Malik, we've got Lash, and I was thinking, I was like, oh, if you take what happened then, right,
Mm,
and you view it with modern eyes, right?
yes.
Obviously, it's so apparent, like, the power dynamics, right?
Yes.
He's a professor. He's
Yes.
what, 20 years
20.
older. And if we even look at like recent events in the news, there's a lot of that's now being under the microscope. Like,
Yes.
you know what?
Yes.
Like these. So I thought that was I thought that was brilliant because
Yeah.
that kind of relationship could happen without much challenge at that
Exactly.
time.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Plus, there wasn't the internet at that time in the
yeah,
sense where she would be able to Google and find out more information about him and, oh, is
yeah,
this his life and is that so it was a time when we all kind of lived in a bubble
yeah,
of limited by whatever technology we had at that time,
yeah,
you know. So
yeah.
yeah.
No, I love that. And maybe if we can move on, I just want to talk a little bit about Nancy, right?
Yes.
Hopefully I'm not spoiling anything because
No,
so
no, it's okay.
for people listening, I think it's helpful to understand. So we've got
Yeah.
Nancy, we've got Tina. Tina is her
Yes.
daughter. So Nancy has two children, Tobias and Tina, right? So
Yes.
so this story kind of tells their story and in a very interesting way because it kind of goes back and forth and when Tina and Nancy were kind of the same age. So that's why we've
Yes.
got like Nancy in the 70s, 80s, Tina
Yes.
in like 2005, whatever, right? Because
Yes.
then that way you can kind of see,
Yeah.
the difference. So I just wanted to talk about, yeah, just the inspiration you drew, like in terms of crafting
Mm,
Tina's character.
mm,
Um, because I kind of get a sense of someone who, like many immigrants, probably just never had a chance to tell her story.
Mm,
And we kind of see Tina in a way verbalizing, like, oh,
mm.
he did this to you, or this
Correct.
happened,
Yes.
in a way that she
Can
doesn't,
do. Exactly.
right?
And I'm
Yeah,
I'm glad you put that out because I mean the kids of today, or at least the young people of today,
yeah,
are so much more knowledgeable
yeah,
about things as well as their rights,
yeah,
you know. And I think with Nancy, she came in with a kind of naivete, right? And that naivete still exists in many parts of Africa as well, where if I come in as a foreigner and I'm speaking your native language, I become easily impressed by that, you know. And so for Nancy to meet not only a professor, so an authoritative figure that then speaks two other languages from a country fluently, that's very easy. It's very easy to get seduced by that.
yeah,
Very easy, especially back then. And then with Nancy being kind of alone, away from family, unmoored, trying to figure things out, things that can start as friendship can evolve even more. And one of the things I always say is that's what they call kind of trauma bonding sometimes, where maybe you meet somebody at at a time when you're really vulnerable and then you're more receptive to them than you would when you are healed or you know. And so I wanted to show what that kind of friendship could be because he was always a friend, right? And so, and I think I say in the book, he kind of seeped into the cracks of our loneliness. So I wanted to show that kind of dynamic. I think with the character Malik, who is was one of my favorite characters to write, I wanted to show like our dads in the 70s. We've all got those photos of our dads looking cool with their bell bottoms and, you know, and flared corduroy and like their shirts open and all the way down to the middle of the chest and the afro, confident and cool. I wanted to show that in a character in the book, which was the character through Malik. And then I also wanted to show what the world does to cool, confident men they are threatened by. All right. So what the world does to black men that are confident, that are going somewhere that kind of suck up the light in a room that are then seen as threatening.
yeah,
So
yeah. No, I absolutely love that. So I think one of the things we kind of alluded to it, right? So the book, I feel kind of really explores complex relationships between women, right, who share spaces.
mm,
So Nancy, Tina, Yaya,
mm,
Nancy,
yes.
obviously Frida, as well as a character. Yeah, so why was it important to kind of show that, I guess? Yeah.
I somebody says somebody said I write the messiest characters. And that is the space I love to play in. I love writing about the messy human condition where there is nobody that's a saint and we're all weak, and we're all vulnerable and we're all trying to do the best we can. And so I wanted to show those relationships in different ways, even with the women and then even with the men, right? Where there's some relationships like with the women that's um where are the boundaries of those relationships? For example, with Yaya and Nancy, I wanted to show that African aunt that has no boundaries in your life. And I wanted to show that to the extreme, where if this is an aunt that has no boundaries, then she can be acting audacious
Yeah,
or
yeah,
asking audacious things from you, you know.
yeah, yeah.
So I wanted to show that in that character. I wanted to show, and I won't give anything with Frida, but I wanted to show what hypocrisy can look like as well. Because there is that one scene, that
Mm,
I'm not going to spoil it, where
yeah,
those two women meet for
yeah.
the first time, and it's a very heated scene. It's actually one of my favorite scenes in the book, where
Mm,
she's saying, what are you, do you even speak English? And Nancy's thinking, I was just at the Nobel dinner,
Yeah.
And so I wanted to show that kind of dynamic as well. And then I wanted to show like the petulant child that's always antagonistic with your mom, that's always like, and that's Tina. A lot of people have described that as a brat, right? And I'm like, yeah, well, first of all, she's very young in her 20, like 20, 19, 20. And she's on the biggest stage, singing stage in the world. You have to have an ego. If I don't give her an ego, then she's not a believable character,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it was fun to play around with these characters and kind of bring them to life in this way.
Yeah. Which character surprised you, right? Which character kind of took a shape that when you started, you didn't think they would kind of go that
Mm,
way? Yeah.
whew, that it's really interesting because I would say Leif, Uncle Leif. He and Malik were my two favorite characters to write. And I wasn't sure where that character was going to go from when it was introduced in the book. So that was the character that just evolved organically on the page
Wow.
from when she first met him to how he became important in her life. And so that was one where I had no idea what this character was going to be or do. I just introduced him as the big brother. And then from there,
Yeah.
he just took on such an integral part of the book that I would say that's the one character that really surprised me. That's the one character a lot of the readers really love, alongside Malik, those two. And yeah, I'm grateful for his presence in the book.
Yeah, yeah, no, no, I love Uncle Leaf. I'm like, yes, because he's kind of like I think it's interesting because back in those days, right?
Mm.
Obviously he's the life he was living.
Yes,
There was so much challenge that he was facing,
yes,
but actually he was the moral voice,
yes,
right?
yes.
So I absolutely love that. And then like with Tina, I love what you say, like that some people kind of describe her as a bread. I mean, there's times I was reading, I was like, oh my God, Tina. But then I love the fact that, like I said, she kind of vocalized like she had sense at the same time,
Yes,
right? And she's the one who's able to be
yes,
vocal to be like,
yeah.
wait, so, did he do this to you? Like, and
Mm.
really kind of like unpeeling, unpacking her mother in a way that the mother just hadn't, hadn't
Yes.
done. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's this generation just knows their rights and what they have a stronger sense of self. I always call them like the Zen generation, where it's
Yeah.
like, I'm sorry, I'm not doing this because I don't feel centered right now. I need to go rest. Like it's that kind of
Yeah.
generation. And so I wanted to capture that Tina's character and then show the dynamic of she's still exploring, trying to find herself. That's
Mm.
why I introduced to Jonas,
Yeah.
because Jonas is like a mirror. So she could see Jonas was herself looking into a mirror. Like if I
Yeah.
don't figure out who I am,
This is where I'm
Jonas
going.
is my mirror, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I made him also mixed. So
Mm.
he's mixed, he's also Swedish.
Yeah.
Mother from I think Uganda, father from Sweden.
Yeah.
And he has, he's got dreadlocks. He's
Yeah.
kind of like a tall, imposing. He is very striking.
Yeah.
He's got, like how I describe him. He's got darker skin, but with like turquoise blue kind of
Yeah.
eyes, and just a very interesting character that's what is trying to figure out who he is and is
Mm.
battling with identity, and so that's why I brought him in so that
Mm.
that relationship could play. And then I also add Seb, who is a
Yeah.
childhood sweetheart.
Yeah.
Um, so so yeah, I wanted to just show a character that was really young
Mm.
and just given a space to grow.
Yeah.
Because I'm in my 40s and I try to read as open-mindedly as I can, but when
Yeah.
I'm encountering books that have characters in their 20s, early 20s,
Yeah.
I have to pull from myself to relate. to those
Yeah.
characters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I try.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I think I've just reached the auntie or mommy
Yeah.
threshold at this point. But
Yeah.
I want to see a character that's annoying, but that's
Mm,
evolving, right? And so
mm,
that's what I wanted to show is you can still create a character that's early in their early 20s trying to figure life out,
yeah.
but show some development, show the reality of them kind of growing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it can be quite a difficult piece of literature to read when it's just a character that's young doing nonsense and you're like,
Yeah.
I'm trying to relate as a 40-something-year-old. I'm trying. So that's what I wanted to do with Tina is make her frustrating, but give you the context that makes her frustrating and then
Mm.
show her growing, actually evolving as a woman. So
Yeah, yeah. No, I love that because when I was reading it, right, and I love the fact that, like it would move like from one chapter it would be about Nancy and then Tina, right? And what I loved about it was it kind of felt like, like when you're driving, right, on a
mm,
road and then there are speed bumps,
yes,
right? So it kind of felt like the Tina portion was speed bumps where you're like, I want to keep going, and then the speed
yeah,
comes, but actually,
boom,
it actually makes the journey safer and easier because I think
yes,
like with Nancy, there's just so much emotion because there's so much you're thinking about, like, oh, wait. What about Medic?
yes,
Oh,
yeah,
what about, oh my God, the brother? Like, there's
yes,
so much that is like almost all the sad things are happening to Nancy. And then
yes,
like you needed the Tina to kind of be like
yes,
regulate your emotions
exactly.
when you're writing. I
So,
mean, did you
so
do that on purpose? Or was that a
I don't
yeah.
think it was on purpose. I just think it was I just needed to write really raw and real characters that kind of
Yeah.
mimic life, and that's what I do with all my novels is and that's also the way I write is also by choice. Like the prose is
Mm,
very accessible. I write in very clear prose, which
yeah.
is it still evokes emotion because I don't want it to derail the experience. I want you to be immersed in it, like you're watching it, feeling it, like she's sitting next to you, so that you don't have to pause and say, "Oh, wait, let me grab my dictionary. What was that?" Right? So even with all the languages I use, I either translate them or I translate them seamlessly in the text
Mm.
where you figure out what it means, right? So that was kind of what I wanted to do, just make them as organic as possible. And then it's always interesting what readers kind of feel, when they read the book. So, or how it feels to them, when they are processing all the emotions.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, what emotions did you want to evoke when you're writing this?
I would actually say this book was my
Mm.
most therapeutic book, like my most
Okay.
cathartic book,
Yeah.
because even though the story is really not about me, not that many
Yeah.
similarities, but the one similarity is if life doesn't go the way you had originally dreamed, how can you pick up the pieces and then
Yeah.
still create a beautiful life and keep moving
Yeah.
forward? And
Yeah.
so I wrote it when I was going through my divorce, and that was a way to help me get through as well that process of when you marry, you always think forever and ever
Yeah.
together. But
Mm.
what if that doesn't happen? For different reasons, people grow apart, evolving differently at different pace. How do you then pick up that life, those pieces, and then get back and try uh, to put the train back on the tracks when it's been derailed? And that was just writing Nancy's story kind of helped me through that.
Mm. Yeah, and I can imagine that, you know, I think a lot of people would feel that way because there are so many Nancys out there, right? So many people that moved abroad. There's the part where Nancy speaks to Tina. I'm not gonna get it sort of like like verbatim, but she sort of says, "Listen, when I was your age, I moved
Mm,
here and there was no one, right? I didn't
yes,
have a mom, I didn't have my parents,
yes,
right?
yeah,
And it's that trauma, I
mm,
guess. And I was kind of thinking about, well, what's the trauma that like some migrants hold, and how does that impact how they then parent, right? These
Yes.
children who,
Yes.
they don't relate to that trauma, and really should they? Should they even relate
Correct.
to it, you know?
Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. And so two things even to that is imagine raising a child whose first language is not yours because they're in the place where the first language isn't yours, right? So imagine the toddler coming, running to you, speaking fluent Swedish, saying, Mama, blah, 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 blah. And then you're like, wait, I'm trying, because you're still trying to catch up with the language. You're still trying to let the kid know, mommy doesn't understand every single word, but I love you, and
Mm.
I'm going to do what I can to understand. So that is one thing. But then also, Tina called Nancy miserable a lot, right? You're miserable. You're miserable. And I mean, obviously, we know why as the readers, but Tina doesn't know yet why. And so, what emotions are we giving out that our kids are picking up? It's usually that's how kind of generational trauma gets passed on and on and on, right? But it's what do we not know that we're giving off that the kids are subconsciously picking up? Are they
Yeah,
picking up that you hate your life? Are they picking up that you hate this place? Are they picking up that you know?
yeah,
So those are things that uh as parents we can also be cognizant of, and those are things I also wanted to address in this book. I mean, this book covers so many issues, so many,
yeah.
but it's done hopefully with a light touch that it just feels seamless.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. No, and I loved the sort of like the political sort of reference. Obviously, we see what's happening in the Gambia, right? But
Yes.
then you also see like with the twins, right? So like
Yes.
sort of like
Yes.
the rise of the right wing, and
Yes.
obviously in this case we kind of know the context, and it kind of makes you think like, well, why do people feel the way they do? Like, what's
Yeah.
what's the real reason,
Exactly.
right? What are they internally battling with? Right? Because
Exactly.
like the twins are like classic case of,
Yeah.
why
Nazis.
you have so much
Yeah, they're Nazis.
hatred.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
they are like Nazis actually.
Yeah.
And that's the word I use in the book.
Yeah.
But um, as you read the book, then you understand why.
Mm, mm,
Right? You
mm.
understand. Doesn't mean they're right.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean they are horrendous characters
Yeah.
in the book. But then you can see what's also fueling that
Yeah.
hate. That hate.
Exactly.
So I write really, really messy characters. Some people can stomach them, some people can't. But it shows the human condition in all its multi dimensions and complexity.
Yeah, no, no, I love it. These are real characters, right?
Yeah.
You have a woman who wanted to be president, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Like nicknamed Madam President.
Madam President.
Yeah,
Yeah, she was on her way. She would
exactly.
have.
And it's not just like this poor immigrant,
No, no.
I think he showed the richness, and thank you for that, because
No,
we
thank
we
you.
we need more of these stories that
Yes.
tell our story. And even like with the whole when the Swedish Prime Minister was addressing
Yes.
the nation and saying, you know what, the Gambians are coming, and
Yes.
it's so I think that's really helpful context, because that
Yeah.
happened a lot across the
Yes.
West, right? Where
Yeah.
people were invited, and then
Yes.
now 20 or so years later, people will be like, oh, why all
Why
these
the
immigrants here? We were
Yes.
invited.
Yes, yes. No, I mean, this book delves into a lot, just
Yeah,
in terms of just history and culture and why things are the way that they are, and why
yeah,
people are acting the way they are, and then pairing that with the modern day with Tina's story, kind of the relative modern day with Tina's story and kind
yeah,
of the changing tone and the Arab Spring and like it's
yeah.
like now I'm thinking, I'm like, did I just open up every newspaper and write about the issue of the day in this book? It feels like it.
No, that
Mm.
no, that I
Mm.
absolutely loved it. So with the mindful of time, oh my God, I'm having so much fun. But anyway, I'll try and wrap it up. But when you're like in your writing, right? And as you said, there's characters, but then there's real themes that are happening, right? Do you ever feel exposed by your work? right? Just in
Mm,
any way, maybe exposed in terms of I guess just people, different ideologies who may read it and just feel like, oh, okay. Or um maybe feel like someone is getting an insight into
yeah,
your thoughts.
into my life.
Yeah.
You know, I- there was somebody that left, it was the cutest review on TikTok. She said that she was talking about the characters, like, oh my God, these characters are frustrating. And then
Yeah.
somebody said, it makes me wonder if the author is all right herself. Like, what is...
Okay.
So, number one, yes, I'm fine. I just love exploring complex, and I love exploring power dynamics in relationships, right? So, yes, I'm fine. But I think with these themes, I always say, especially with my two previous books, because there's one character that's closer to my background, which is the Kemi character. She's Nigerian American, kind of power woman,
Yeah.
executive, blah, blah, blah. People always assume that was like an avatar for me. And
Right.
if there was an avatar for me, then who are all these people? Who are this? No, 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 she's not an avatar.
Yeah.
But obviously, it makes sense to pull some experience, right? So,
Yeah.
for example, Nancy's emotion of being derailed, I went through that. My life got derailed about 2 years ago when I left, and got filed for divorce.
Yeah.
And those kind of situations, I'm raising a mixed daughter.
Mm, mm,
She's still young, she's still 13, but
yeah.
also trying to understand the dynamics around her as she's growing up and figuring out life and all of that.
Yeah.
So none of the characters are me per
Yeah.
se, but there will always be some themes that are close to you that you're trying
Mm,
to walk through and understand. Um, you know, Laj, the
mm,
the character is not, you know,
mm.
is not indicative of my ex relationship,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah. Yeah.
but could be a mixture of maybe other relationships I've been in,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's I think every author brings a piece of themselves into their work
Yeah.
that doesn't have to be as explicit. It
Yeah.
can be more covert, more so than overt, or like
Yeah.
this is yeah.
Yeah. No, no, I love that. And listen, if you are reading the book or you're looking to read the book, so we purposely not really talked a lot about Lash. Am I saying it right?
Yes,
Like one of
Lash,
the
yeah,
yeah, one of the main characters, just because that would have kind of really spoiled it.
yeah.
But oh, what a character! I was like, oh, oh, okay. I was like, what a character!
Yes.
I was. Oh, okay. Look, I won't spoil it. But anyway, yeah, like, Lola, I'm having so much fun. But
Thank
you know
you.
what? This is incentive. If you guys are listening or watching, you guys need to get the book. But I guess like, what's next for you, Lola?
It's next to me. I mean, I'm just coming down the eye of having Bitter Honey out in the UK and internationally now.
Yeah,
It's coming to the US in November, so I'm going to the
okay.
US on a book tour there. So I'm
Yeah,
super excited about that. Next week or soon anyway, I've
yeah.
got like a tour around Sweden,
Oh,
with the books. I'm stopping
yeah.
at my favorite bookstore. And I'm also writing my next novel, which I don't want to share too much about, but that one will be a bit closer to me because it's about
Right.
a travel writer, and that's been my career for what, 20 years.
Yeah.
So that's actually going to be a departure from this, and it's going to be more contemporary romance.
Mm.
And it's going to take us to some incredible countries around the world and some
Yeah.
incredible experiences. So that's what I'm working on right now.
Yeah, no, I absolutely I cannot wait. So everyone, we've been talking about bitter honey. I'm gonna put the links like wherever you're watching, listening. But clearly from the sounds of it, Lola, like we need to read like your catalog because you're
Yes.
creating a universe of
Yes.
characters. And I love that because I'm like, oh, okay, clearly now I have to go back and read
Yeah.
the Kemi,
Yeah,
the
no,
bias one. Yeah.
I think if you start with In Every Mirror She's Black, and
Mm,
then the sequel, that because that book has a sequel which is called Everything Is Not Enough.
right.
Bitter Honey is absolutely standalone, like completely standalone.
Yeah.
But those two, I think you should read them. Start with In Every Mirror She's Black, and then you
Yeah.
start getting a sense of just this Black Nordic experience, the Afro-Nordic experience, and really, yeah, those two books are very layered. It's three characters, so it's
Yeah.
three points of views. So you
Yeah.
get, from career and class and culture. And yeah. So
Yeah.
enjoy those two. Enjoy them.
No, absolutely. Yeah, no, I listen, I love I listen, I've loved reading Bitter Honey.
Thank
I've
you.
absolutely loved reading Bitter Honey and just
Thank you.
discovering more about your work. Have
Thank
absolutely
you.
enjoyed this conversation. Like I said, guys, if you're listening, we're gonna put the links and definitely check out the other books. Lola, where can people find you?
Yes.
I will put like your social media or whatever,
Yes.
but maybe if you can just share
Oh, absolutely.
yeah,
I always say that, my work is kind of easy to find,
yeah,
just put my name and
yeah,
it goes straight to my portfolio. Or you could just go to akimade.com,
yeah,
AKINMADE.com, links out to all the different things I do, whether
yeah,
it's photography or books or writing or my academy, all of that.
yeah.
But I'm quite visible on social media because
Okay.
mostly because I need to promote my work,
Yes.
and get it into more hands. So
Yes, yes, yes. And as I said, we'll be sharing your social media and everything. And I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to speak
thank
to us.
you.
Our audience loves readers, right?
Mhm.
Sorry, loves authors,
Okay.
and they are avid readers. So I know they're going to love this. And we've got
Thank
some people
you.
that listen from the US, so I'll put a reminder that November time will like re-promote this again,
Yes, yes.
so that they remember that this is coming their way. Lola, I've
Oh,
thank you
thank
so
you so
much.
much.
I guess
Thank
what
you.
one last question is if
Yes.
someone is visiting Sweden, Stockholm, or wherever, what food should they get? Like,
Mm.
like what
Oh my God.
delicacy?
There's so many. There's so many.
Yeah,
Obviously, people always talk about cinnamon buns. I
yeah.
say try the cardamom bun. That's actually
Oh,
I call it the ones we try to keep to ourselves, the cardamom bun. That's the
yeah,
one you should try.
yeah,
Don't say, no, 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 I don't want a cinnamon bun. I want a cardamom bun.
yeah.
Then you know. Then you know.
Thank you so much. You know what? I'm
Thank
I'm
you.
I'm going to get one when because I'm definitely Sweden is now on my list. Like
You
I'll
should
look for
come.
like cheap flights or cheap Eurostar or whatever.
Yes.
But Lola, it's been an absolute pleasure. If I had it my way, I
Oh,
would speak like for 3 hours
I
and
thank you so much.
deep
I had
deep
so much
dive this
fun.
book. No,
So much fun.
thank you so much. And guys, Lola Ákínmádé Akestrom.
Orchestra. Yes.
Orchestra. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. See, I need to visit Sweden so that I
You
can
sure?
improve.
Yeah.
But no, thank you so much, and
Thank you.
bye, guys.